Great show.
Thank you so much. You know, anything can happen in an encore. It reminds me of a time I was in a place called Pappy and Harriet's, kind of near the end of the set, but like, this whole time there's all these Marines that are off duty that are in the crowd, and they're like, we hate this, we just want to have dinner, and we want to like, whatever, you know? And I'm like, come on, man, I'm starting to feel pretty down on myself, and these guys are all boozing it up, getting wasted, and I'm like, okay, you know, I can respect that, but at the same time, I'm on like so many mushrooms that like things are starting to pulsate, and I'm feeling like my head is kind of somewhere near my feet, and I go off for the encore, come back, and for some reason they've had like a change of pace, because I stood on a table, and all of a sudden they're all gathered around me. They love the show at this point, and I'm like, holy shit, all because of the encore? Finished the last song, I jump off the table, and these guys are all my best friends at this point. They're like, Armor, Armor. And they carry me off into the desert, just right out the back door. I don't know, man. That's just the power of the encore.
The encore is a chance to push past the end.
It's that one last moment for them to think, maybe I'll get that song that I want.
Encores are, they're like kind of, I find them kind of ridiculous.
Everybody's still calling your name because they want their money's worth.
I'm gonna give you my everything. I feel like you've given your everything. So we've fed off this energy, like, let's keep it moving.
It isn't just walk it off and walk it back on. I try and make use of it.
There's this weird moment when you get off stage where you can reflect on the show and how it's going.
At different times, I think the encore has possibly seemed sort of Las Vegas-y and sort of cheesy.
If you walk off stage and there's no like real off stage, it's kind of stupid to just stand there and wait for people to clap loud enough for you to walk back on.
People sort of almost expect it at shows, and we're the same if we go and see someone, I'm sure.
It's tradition, right? I mean, it's rock and roll tradition.
If they don't come out and do an encore, it's like, you know, you feel almost like you didn't get the full show.
The nights that stand out to me now are actually the nights where, for whatever reason, there's a subtle change, and I think, no, they really want us to come back. Like, they're really pushing hard tonight.
Like, you really want one more? Like, man, this is weird. You know? That's the way it's supposed to be.
Being in the audience myself for those times, there were times when I really cheered as loud as I possibly could and banged on every surface with my hands, with my feet, try to add to this surging volume. And you really did feel like if you could yell just a little bit louder, that the band, who you could tell was just out of sight, would actually hear it. And that maybe you would make that difference that would actually have them come back out.
God bless you, see you later. It's a similar feeling when we're going back out to the encore as we got off the stage, you know, that little bit time between, it's like, ooh, ooh. Unless it was a terrible show where it's like, oh. But if it was a good show, then it's like, ooh. You go back out. It's great. People want to hang more. It's great. It's strange, but it's great.
One more? Is that okay if we do one more?
Before the encore, I run off, immediately grab some water, because I'm like so sweaty. It's pretty gross. Take a deep breath, and then you hear the audience clapping, and as soon as physically I'm able, we'll be like, okay, let's do this. I got this. I love this. Let's go.
I like to have the little break in between because I get so physical on stage, but it's like kind of weird that we all pretend to walk off stage like we're not coming back and do the encore. It's such a convention at this point. But sometimes just the mood is right and you just want that like rock star feeling. And so you can let the audience build themselves up into a fervor.
The origins of the encore go way back to the classical music, traditional concert hall settings.
After someone would sing a beautiful aria, the crowd would ask them to do that part of it again.
There really wasn't the expectation of an encore. It wasn't assumed that people stand up and demand more.
There was no recorded music. And so the audience kept wanting more and more and more, and they would get these repeated encores that would just last forever.
Some opera houses were so put off by the endless encores that asked so much of these performers that they put up signs, no encores. They say, get the heck out. We're not performing Madame Butterfly in its entirety again for the 5th time tonight.
There's a famous story about Toscanini. While conducting an opera, he refused to allow one of the singers to do an aria over again after the crowd called for an encore. Someone challenged him to a duel right there during the concert.
You know, I think now it's kind of just expected, but I really do think that's why it still is considered, you want to make it a moment for people. And it all started back in classical music because it was so special. You couldn't listen to it again.
I always think of Peaches when I think of a fantastic encore. It was 2004, something in there. I went to see her perform in Montreal, and she invited a guy on stage, and she gave him the microphone. And you know, we've all seen it a million times, the person that comes on stage and they're not very good, but everyone cheers them on anyways. This guy was phenomenal.
Sucking on my like you wanted me, calling me all the time like Blondie. Check out my Chrissy behind it.
And Peaches was watching him so intently, and by the time that he had done like a verse and a chorus, she took him down onto the ground and got on top of him and like started making out with him. And I was like, this is literally the best encore I've ever seen in my entire life.
Early in the rock and roll era, a lot of acts get them on, do the hit, get them off.
The whole famous like Elvis has left the building quote is actually tied directly back to the encore.
He wanted the crowd to perpetually want more and wanted to keep that special power that Elvis had for the next show.
The encore became more of a thing when it was about the star doing his performance. James Brown, along with all the other things that he invented the James Brown encore.
I remember at a very young age seeing James Brown, some live performance with my parents in the living room. And on TV, there was this moment when he breaks down, and when he drops on his knees, you can see, you can't drop to your knees lightly. I asked my mom, what's going on? They put this cape over him like a blanket. They were helping him. This guy came out, and then he won't have it.
Then he runs back in, you know, and gets the crowd going again and does like 15 more songs, and then you think he's about to leave, and then does it again.
No, like he doesn't say this out loud, he's acting it all out. All his gestures are larger than life.
Comes back to the mic with even like more energy and just like people think you're done and you can't physically do anymore. It's amazing.
His handlers come out, put the cape around his shoulders, try to leave him off stage. Each time he gets a little further down the hallway.
There's probably times in that moment when he actually really didn't think he could go. And he counted on the power of that ritual to continue.
The fact that he made the encore this ritualized bit of theater where he's not trying to fool anybody. After a while, people know, yeah, he does this every night.
Stuff like that I love, you know, playing with the energy of the crowd.
I did a take on that in the Lady Who Shot Me video. When I'm at the lowest point of the song where I can't go any further, they bring me out a cape, walk me off stage, and then I go like tackle the mic, and that's all like an homage to James Brown for sure.
I was young, I was a kid. I was with my Uncle Bill back home in Knoxville. I started singing on radio and television when I was about 10. And I went out with my big guitar and my Uncle Bill to sing my song. And so I get an encore, and they keep bringing me back. And I didn't know but the one song at that time. I mean, I kept singing it over and over. We were heading back to the car, my Uncle Bill and I. I remember looking at him and saying, they liked me, didn't they? I think I could be a star. And he said, well, that's what I've been trying to tell you. I look back on it now, and I don't think it's because I was good. I think it's because I was little, and they were just being nice. But that made me think that I maybe had something.